or are the genuine issues which stand in the way of the states developing the required trust at that level? There does not seem to exist any clearly stated viewpoints of the state governments on this subject, except that certain issues would have been raised by them on different occasions, whether it be hearings of the Center State Commission or in response to correspondence from the concerned ministries. The only oft referred to political statement of a senior chief minister is that the center treats the states as if they are municipalities. Does this imply how such states look at the role and relevance of the urban bodies? There is a clearly prevalent view in another state that since it is a state which provides the required resources to the local bodies, and they themselves do nothing more than very meager functions of conservancy, neither there is any strength in the argument that they should be given more powers, nor in taking them seriously. Something close to what the states are willing to do can be seen in the recommendation structured by a group of chief ministers formed as a subcommittee on urbanization by the National Development Council a couple of years back. It was recommended that the Government of India draft and place before Parliament a framework law by building on the model municipal law developed by the Ministry of Urban Development for the local governments to ensure that there is fair degree of uniformity in the legislative and institutional framework for the urban local bodies. The framework law could be enacted under Article 252 of the Constitution for the states. This law should lay down broad principles of devolution of powers, responsibilities, and functions to the local governments and communities, detailed role of the local body, its standing committees, and of the Area Sabha, Ward Sabha, planning and implementation of development schemes and programs. Another recommendation is that the ULBs should be empowered by devolution of all the 18 functions listed in the 12th schedule, along with the concomitant funds and functionaries, so as to ensure that the urban bodies are in a position to carry out the functions and responsibilities assigned to them. In the given circumstances, this approach seems to be the most desirable to be able to take the next best step towards honoring the principle of subsidiarity and letting the urban bodies perform fully and actively in the areas earmarked for them. The problem today is that even though the 18 functions for the urban bodies are listed clearly, there are states where the function of water supply is positioned more at the state level than water authorities and water and sewage boards, in some cases even chaired by the chief minister or minister concerned, is responsible for this function, and the concerned local body finds it difficult to take the agenda forward. Earmarking resources for augmenting bulk supply of water is quite often politically decided at the state level. Various urban bodies find it difficult to fully discharge the function of solid waste collection and management because either there is need for huge investments to set up treatment facilities, or landfill sites are increasingly getting to be difficult to be located within city limits. Housing and city transport are not functions assigned clearly to the urban bodies in general, as a result of which there is ambiguity, confusion, and mismanagement. The states can easily shift the blame onto the local bodies with regard to raising resources locally. Own revenues of the urban bodies account for a little over half of their total revenue, and total revenue itself is only 0.9% of the GDP. Municipal bodies can levy and collect only those taxes that state governments choose to devolve from their powers as specified in the state list. Since the 74th Amendment did not lay down the revenue base for the urban bodies, and there is no local bodies list earmarked, the power to determine the revenue base continues to remain with the state governments. The 74th Amendment had mandated the state governments to constitute metropolitan planning committees and district planning committees, which are responsible for preparation of the metropolitan plan and the district development plan. However, the state and town country planning acts have not been amended to incorporate these provisions. Model urban and regional planning and development law for the purpose has been circulated by the Central Ministry of Urban Development. Various states have constituted DPCs, but implementation of the MPC is not satisfactory. Article 243D of the Constitution requires the DPC to consolidate the plans prepared by the panchayats and municipalities in the district and to prepare a draft development plan for the district as a whole. The manual for integrated district plan prepared by the Planning Commission lays down the sequence of preparation of municipal plans, how participation of area sabhas is to be facilitated, how area sabha plans, then ward plans, and finally consolidation at the municipal level is to take place. There are no such systems working, and there is no professional staff support provided for this type of focused work. In the absence of efforts by the states to comply with this provision, the local planning process suffers. There is no regularity and systematic principle of providing resources by the state governments, and the urban mission experience shows that PPPs have not really been able to take off effectively at the city level because there are no transparent policies and methodologies laid down, and a functional municipal regulator system also has not come into existence. Despite the first enthusiasm demonstrated about credit rating of most of the 65 mission cities, nothing further has happened in terms of carrying the agenda forward. There is long journey ahead for the city bodies to get prepared to avail of the municipal bond issue window, which seems to have become available now. The fourth segment is time-wise, where am I? 3-4 minutes left. I can cut short wherever I try to stop, otherwise I can complete. The fourth segment is where do urban bodies stand in all this? While the elected representatives at the urban body level would welcome delegation of more powers and authority, there has not been a convincing effort across the country to make this happen. There is no uniform accounting and reporting framework at this level, and the municipal revenues have generally had limited buoyancy. The 14th Finance Commission says that it is inconceivable and certainly not desirable that local bodies seek an ever-increasing share of public monies and yet continue to keep themselves beyond the ambit of accountability for the public money placed with them. At the local level, they need to strengthen their tax collection efficiency. Both the 13th and 14th Finance Commissions found that property tax collection could be improved. A 14th Finance Commission study found that potential for collection of property tax has not been fully tapped, and per capita revenue from this source varied from rupees 42 to rupees 1,677 across states. States use different methods to levy this tax. The 14th Commission has endorsed the view of the State Finance Commissioners that all state governments should empower local bodies to levy this tax on plinth area basis. Also, granting of exemptions should be minimized. Implementation of GIS for mapping all properties is still to happen. The performance with regard to user charges is not satisfactory. There is an elaborate system of state control on the day-to-day functioning of these bodies. The control system is usually applied through inspection, calling of records, and giving directions for performing civic functions. Capacity is a basic issue at the level of urban bodies. This has been talked about. There are various areas where our city bodies are lacking in action. There are no strategies which get drawn up at the city level to ensure equity in access to water, steady reduction of non-revenue water. When it comes to issues relating to climate change, sustainability issues, energy conservation, promoting green buildings, and many such other relevant areas, in today's healthy city development, our cities find themselves clueless and directionless. What then? With the announcement of the nationally important time-bound programs like Swachh Bharat and Housing for All, the expectation levels regarding performance by the local bodies have gone up. There are further challenges before the urban bodies. Increasingly, cities have to be competitive among themselves and have to attract investment. And the question which arises is it necessary or desirable that the central government should take the lead to prompt and motivate the states to bring about changes? What will make the states act to improve the role of the urban bodies? Will the urban bodies rise to the occasion to meet the new complex challenges? Where do the ordinary urban residents figure in all this? A practical way forward could be taking up the whole issue of strengthening of urban bodies for discussion at the forum of the Niti Aayog, so that a workable, this is the last part, so that a workable consensus emerges at the level of chief ministers. This can be a comprehensive framework for action, listing various action points. It would be desirable to have a relook at the 74th Amendment itself so as to make it more focused and purposeful, a review of the Schedule 12 to enlarge and strengthen it, a workable time-bound agenda evolved at the deliberations of the chief ministers to be followed up with agenda for action. Such an agenda will cover various key issues like better devolution, increased powers to raise resources, revised cadre structure, capacity building actions, and an agreed framework for devolution. If full empowerment of the elected mayors, chairpersons does not meet ready consensus, then a new framework law could be considered so that gradual improvements in empowerment become possible, and thereby better governance and better service delivery becomes possible. Consider incentivization of performance both at states and local bodies level. A well-structured reform agenda should form part of the new central programs being structured. Like toilets for all and housing for all, additional time-bound tasks such as mission for solid waste management, better and effective management of water, measurable pollution reduction action, working towards specific solar energy share, making green buildings agenda a part of city schemes also need to be incorporated. As further delegation and strengthening happens, cities should become accountable for their performance. One minute overlap maybe. Thank you so much.
Wonderful, sir. Okay. Thank you so much, sir, for this covering that entire canvas of institutional and regulatory terrain in the urban sector. It was like going through a class in college. It was really wonderful. And now, at the request of Professor, the panel here will request Professor Sivram Krishnan to enlighten us with his views. And I'd just like to leave one thought. With all this heavy deployment of technology, especially IT and digital data everywhere in the urban sphere, does it warrant, this is a thought for everyone, does it warrant a change in administrative procedures and things? So Professor Sivram Krishnan. Get your mic, sir. Sir, we'll request you to talk for 5 minutes. Is that all right? Thank you.
I'll try and limit myself to 3 minutes or so. I'll make a couple of points in this session, and I'll make a couple of more points in the session on metropolitan management. As far as urban bodies are concerned, I'm happy I could hear the last words of Sri Venkaiah Naidu when he said that urban bodies are very important, urban local bodies, and they should be given some powers. With great respect, I would say that the minister's words are rather in sharp contrast with many states. There seems to be a continuing problem in recognizing urban local bodies as institutions of self-government. I do not know whether a Hindi translation would make the understanding better. But self-government is something that is not accepted and that is certainly not digested. And that particular reality has to be faced. Second, by and large, as Ramachandran very rightly says, it's not a question of inadequacy of political will. I think it's a very deliberate kind of a state political policy that urban local bodies cannot be competitors for the political space, and that political space has to be exclusive in the hands of the state government. And you find repeated instances of this, which borders not only from denying powers and responsibilities to urban local bodies, but notwithstanding the right to live. That is one right that was given by the 74th Amendment. Even that is denied, with the result that in many places the urban local bodies are given very, very short shrift. All of us professionals can dress up the urban local bodies to make them look somewhat different. But essentially, they are shells with a lot of bells and whistles and very, very little real power. Even most recently, if you take Andhra's example of the Capital Region Development Authority, the legal basis is in that entire area, the local bodies more or less cease to exist. The parastatal has full powers to do everything. The story of Jharkhand and Jamshedpur has been mentioned by Ramachandran. This is not very exclusive. We should all